A very good morning, Team Zimbabwe. A very good morning, Africa and beyond. So, there are developments within Zimbabwe, and we are continuing to give you updates on what is really happening in Zimbabwe. President Emerson Mnangagwa will be the chair of SADC in 2024, probably in August. That is when Zimbabwe is going to host the next SADC Summit. However, SADC is seized with the matters within Zimbabwe. The just ended elections in Zimbabwe were a complete chaos, and SADC is seized with the reports of the SADC Observer Mission, as well as the AU Observer Mission, as well as other international organizations who noted that Zimbabwean elections were fraud. So, what is likely going to happen is that there is going to be an extraordinary summit which has to deal with this matter, but ZANU PF is adamant, and ZANU PF believes that President Emerson Mnangagwa will be president of the Republic of Zimbabwe at least up to August 2024, when he is going to assume the role of SADC chair. Is that going to happen? This is Matigari, who says, so you know, President Edith will be discussed in the third quarter of next year. Is that true? Let us take a look onto what other experts had to say. Dr. Ibo Mandaza came and weighed in and said, no, comrade, SADC can and will convene an extraordinary summit in the next few weeks following due process. Don't believe ignorant propagandists among you. I reminded you the other day that we are more familiar with SADC matters than Vanampuru among you. Comrade Neva Masora says, uri kutaura zvenext year zvakanaka ichangamire. Okay. Zvikanzi panapa uri kutaura zvenext year, if a matter of urgent, what SADC stops SADC convening an extraordinary summit. Okay. Zvikanzi you are nothing, ukwane. Zvikanzi panapa extraordinary summit on Zimbabwe elections loading to stop the charade and delay. Okay, and the final report is out and says there was no election in Zimbabwe. It has been recommended that there be a rerun run by SADC, AU, UN, and EU. Saka changamire. Garai pasi manyepo enyu haana kwaari kuenda. Remember, this is getting serious in Zimbabwe. A new Zimbabwe is loading. So, this is what is happening in Team Zimbabwe. We are actually seeing a moment where ZANU PF is now trying to protect itself, but they cannot. The best possible thing President Mnangagwa could have done was to leave power in a more noble way, but he decided to sink together with his party. ZANU PF would have picked some seats. For an example, I want to give you an example. Let's say ZANU PF had gotten 136 seats and proportional representatives 178 seats, 76 seats. They would have allowed Advocate Nelson Chamisa to win the presidency. They would have allowed him to take over government. Yet they decided to fight him. They decided to steal everything and sink together. Remember, the MPs, the majority of the MPs of ZANU PF who won in the rural areas didn't win because they were loved. They won because they were part and parcel of the intimidation gangs. They were working with FARS. Everywhere they go, they would go with FARS. Everything which was being done was supervised by FARS. So you will understand how all these things happened and how organized they were in terms of stealing and looting the 2023 election. But was it enough? No, it wasn't. Why? It's because there is overwhelming evidence to point out, to suggest that this election was not free, this election was not fair, this election was not credible. And this is in the public domain. Go to a situation where you get at a polling station, you find people seated, fuzz people seated in front of desks. The same people who were intimidating villagers a few weeks ago, few months ago, are the same people who are manning desks at a polling station. What kind of message does that send? You understand? So you see that if you just look on all those issues, just imagine a situation where a non-opposition supporter is visited and is told, leave opposition politics if you want to live in this area after elections. So you see how these threats were working. They would go to somebody and say, we got your name from ABCD, who is a triple C leader in a particular area, which means we are actually targeting you. And they'll be lying. And everybody, they will just try to check people who are actually close to you, who frequently visit you, or who interact with you, to an extent where you get to the ball. Nobody wants to talk to you. Nobody wants to stand with you. Ukaenda panhamo hakuna ari kuda kumira newe, hakuna ari kuda kana kutaura newe, not because they hate you, but because of fear of victimization. Those are the issues which were happening prior to the elections. So you get to the elections, you see the same people who were intimidating villagers, you see them manning polling stations, and you ask questions. What is happening here? So honestly speaking, if you consider whatever which was happening, you understand that indeed these elections cannot stand, and SADC really needs to intervene. The biggest part of this rigging is that in Harare, there were no ballots. But ZEC had admitted that they had ballot papers in time. They said that they were prepared. They actually issued a report where they said they had printed 7 million ballot papers for the presidency, 6 million plus for the National Assembly, 6 million plus for the local authority. But on election day, no ballots in Harare, no ballots in parts of Matabeleland, no ballots in parts of Manicaland. These are CCC strongholds. There are so many people who were disenfranchised, who didn't vote on the election day. So if you put all those things into consideration, we would agree that the constitution was violated, and there is every reason for SADC to intervene, because SADC guidelines and principles on elections are clear on what must happen. So I believe that they will convene, as we talked earlier, they will convene, they will have to talk, they will have to have an extraordinary summit. And I don't believe that President Mnangagwa will be able to sit onto that summit. He will have to actually hear kuti zvinenge zvichifamba sei, because they are not regarding him as a president at this moment in time. So, Team Zimbabwe, we continue to watch what is going to happen next. We continue to watch how interesting everything is going to be from now going forward. So it is what it is, Team Zimbabwe. It is in our conclusion that ZANU PF is afraid, and they are scared for the extraordinary SADC summit, and they're trying to manage the situation by sending wrong signals, wrong messages, in a way to try and threaten, number one, citizens, number two, regional leaders, and other political actors. Let us meet in other episodes and other podcasts.